It is the end of January and it really doesn't feel like growing bonsai time. But it is. It is time to prepare for repotting. Because even though it is still cold, it is still frozen, it is not the time to repot now. It will be there before you know it. Because seriously, if you look closely, spring might be closer than you think. So here are 8 tips, things to do in early spring, late winter, so you are prepared for the new growing season. Now what can you do in January or early February to prepare optimally for the repotting season? Let's explore a few activities that I do in this period. And let's get out of this snow. It's cold. Now although everything is frozen, I can check which trees do I want to repot. This one for instance, I styled last year and it needs a new pot because it is now in a plastic tub. Come here. I think it is worthy of a new pot. But which pot to use? Now what pot to use is of course on the one hand a very personal question, on the other hand there are some guidelines. So there's of course the size determination. There's on the one hand the height of the tree, about 2/3 of the height should be the width of the pot. Something like this. And then the height of the pot should correspond to the thickness of the trunk, roughly 1:1. So this pot is a little bit deeper, but also a little bit shorter, a little bit narrower. Therefore it might fit from a size perspective. It is maybe a little bit small, but I think it will work. But there's of course also the component of species. Glazed pots are typically for deciduous broadleaf trees. For coniferous trees, we typically look for unglazed pots. Now this is an example of an unglazed pot. This doesn't meet the criteria of height. It is way too shallow and it is a lot deeper. But because this is a literati, a smaller pot that is narrow might actually fit quite well as well. Now this pot doesn't have a stamp on it. Yes, it does have a stamp. This might mean that it is an older Japanese style pot. I think this might work quite well for this tree. It's maybe a little big. But maybe this is the right pot for this tree for this year. Now what are we going to do with the pot? Of course, the pots can be prepared. This pot is already prepared. It has a nice mesh in it over all the holes. These are actually holes for wires that you can wire the tree into the pot. Once you've done that, what else do you need to do at this point of time? Well, what are you going to plant the tree in? Do you have your substrate ready? Now there's many different types of substrate, and what substrate to use is a different discussion entirely. I'm not going to go into this discussion because I do have a video on what substrate I use. Now this is mostly inorganic. There's a lot of bark in there to have some sort of an organic compound. It is coarse and the sizes of the kernels are all the same. And that's something that's also important and something that you can prepare for now. So I have this set of sieves. Very, very fine. A little bit fine, that's this size, and quite coarse. And of course the rim that goes with it. I use this to sift all my substrate. So I want all the substrate kernels to be roughly of the same size, and I want all the dust to be out of it. The dust needs to go out because once you start watering, the dust accumulates in the bottom of the pot and it might block your drainage holes. So it's a very good reason to remove the dust. Now the size component, I find it important because otherwise the openness of your substrate depends on the smallest kernels in there. After all, the bigger holes in coarser substrate are filled with the smaller kernels. So that's why I like to have all my substrate roughly on the same size. And I like this size very much. This is what? 1/5 of an inch, 1/2 centimeter maximum kernel size. That is for the size trees that I have and the pots that I use, optimal in my growing conditions. You have to check this for your growing conditions. If you have a very dry area or a very wet area, you might vary this. The smaller the kernels, the more water it will retain. So a coarser substrate will typically be drier than a finer substrate. Wow, do you see the snow blowing in? Is it coming in front of the camera? Let me flip this around. This is gorgeous outside. Of course, to help yourself in the work when you do start repotting, once you have selected your pot, it might be wise to check whether you actually cleaned the pot before you put it into storage last year. This was not cleaned. Then you also see these holes. Substrate will fall straight through them. So you need to prepare a mesh for it. Now, a mesh is something that you just put in there to avoid the substrate falling through. And in this case, the mesh normally is placed in the pot with wire. You can do that now, or you can do that as you are repotting. But, well, the snow is blowing, you might as well do it now, right? So prepare your pots. If you don't have the right pot, this is of course an optimal time to go shopping. Sit on the couch, have a glass of wine, open up your shopping app, get some new pots. I make scripts for videos. If you are shopping anyway, don't forget your fertilizer, either your organic, your inorganic. Don't forget your fungal protection and or anti-insecticides, or your winter oil treatments. After all, web shops have loads of these things available in store. But you might as well just go visit one of your local bonsai stores and have a look at their physical store and maybe pick up a tree or two. And at the same time, buy your substrate, your pots and your wire. Tip: it's winter, go shopping. Now the winter weather may not be all that great for your tools. They may have gone a little bit rusty, they may have gone blunt. Of course, this is also a great time to just oil your tools, and if they need it, sharpen them. Adding oil and sharpening them, cleaning out your tools at least once a year properly, ideally after every use, really lengthens the time that you can use them. Sharp tools make cleaner cuts and therefore reduce the risk of infections. And regularly adding a little bit of oil to your tools makes sure that they don't rust all that easily. Now these are regular steel tools, and they rust very easily if they're not maintained properly. Well-maintained tools last a lifetime. Make cleaner cuts, and your bonsai has smaller wounds, cleaner wounds, and heals over better. So tool care is a good thing to do when you can't work your trees. I just use a light maintenance oil available, I think, in most hardware stores. And an old piece of cloth. I should replace this actually. Watering might not be front of mind right now, but the watering season is coming again. Have you considered ever cleaning out the rain head for your garden hose? This is an optimal time. A little bit of vinegar, pop it in there, soak it for an hour, brush it out, wash out the inside, screw everything back together, and you're ready to go for the season again. Just a little tip. Might be a good idea to check your water barrels. Those are empty, so they can't have frozen through, but if yours have, you might have a problem in spring. And of course, if you don't have one yet, buy them now, put them in place so that you can use the spring rains to fill these barrels up. Oh, it's cold.